On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about fishing, having a mechanical, and seeing a floater. And it's not what you think it is. Well, or is it? Stay tuned. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Luke Who's Talking podcast with me, Luke. How you doing out there? I hope your year is going all right at this point. What will be a month in? The year's over. The year's over. Anyway, now, as I mentioned in the previous podcast, episode 16, I was going to do some camping last week, which I did. So this episode, we're just going to have some stories about, 3 stories as usual, about the camping trip and whatever else. So let's start off with, the first one then. And that is, all week, we caught, myself and my 2 friends, we caught 4 fish. Did we catch 4? Maybe 5. We didn't catch many. And, we went out, one day we went out on, a friend of mine's got a boat, so we thought, we'll go out on the boat. So we went out on the boat, dropped the line, we were out for a few hours, caught nothing, didn't land a fish. Shocking. One thing that did happen, though, is I had, on my tackle, had some jellies, like jellyfish, not jellyfish, but a lure, which is like a fish. Wait, hold on, I'm explaining this badly. I had a lure on my tackle, and the lure's the shape of a fish. Instead of it being a hard lure, it's jelly. So you put your hook through it, and the fish is like, oh, look, there's a fish over there, and goes bang, and then eats it. So anyway, I had these jelly things on my hooks, and they got eaten off. I had bait on there as well. Didn't catch a fish. And we tried various places, and we had not much luck at all with catching these darn fish. Like, come on, how hard is it to catch a fish? Obviously pretty hard. But it got to a point one day, I chucked my rod out. Where we stayed, where we camped was near the water. So I chucked my rod out, and I have a rod holder in my car. So I got that out, put that in the sand, put my fishing rod on it, just went and sat down and was doing a crossword or something. And then all of a sudden, my friend's like, oh, you're on. So I ran over and I caught a fish. I did catch fish anyway. So one night we had fish and chips for our dinner, which was beautiful because it was fish we actually caught. We had salmon. Some of the fish we caught was salmon, and shocker, it wasn't like bright red, orange, pink, whatever colour you want to call it, that you get from the shop. It was proper from the ocean fish, not farmed. So, we had an interesting time with our fishing. It was almost fruitless, I'll say that. Much like that, the entertainment value of that story. So, not all was smooth on the trip. Now, one day, I mentioned earlier we weren't fishing now, there was a little bit of a drive to go, we had to go on to get to where we launched the boat this particular day. So I drove my vehicle, and my 2 friends went in my friend's car on the boat. And on the way to the boat ramp, I had a bit of a mechanical. So let me take you through it. I was driving along, minding my own business. All of a sudden, car dies. Just out of nowhere, stops, dies. So I'm thinking, well, isn't this slightly inconvenient? So I got the car, I managed to pull over, and I called and said, oh, the car stopped. So we come back, jumped it, and got moving, and got back, got to where we have to, and the car, got the car to a mechanic, and got it fixed. But I've got to say, I was driving along in the car, it just stopped, died, bang, gone. And I was like, oh my, shiitake mushrooms, what's wrong with this vehicle? So I pulled it up, wouldn't start. And it turned out what the problem was is the alternator, apparently, this is according to the mechanic, the alternator on the vehicle was, quote, faulty. So I put a new one on. And what the alternator does is that runs off the engine, the alternator creates electricity and then charges the battery in the car, so then the battery can run what it needs to run to help the car run. And of course, what had happened was my battery had got down to a lower voltage, or too lower voltage, and died, stopped. And so whatever electronics, whatever electricity the car needs, it wasn't getting. Henceforth, the car stopped. And and I got to say, it was probably actually lucky where it stopped. The car stopped because it was on a straight bit of road. It was a little bit hilly, sort of coming downhill, but not that long earlier, maybe a couple of minutes earlier, we were on a bit of a more twisty road. And I'll tell you what, if the car stopped on this twisty road, it would have been an absolute code brown happening, I reckon. It would have been absolutely just a real doozy of a situation that would have been. There would have been a code brown going on, I'll tell you that for sure. But anyway, car got fixed, got me home, and it's just parked outside. I washed it earlier, so it's just parked outside, ashamed of itself, as it should be, for having a mechanical. Shocker. Now, have you ever seen something floating or whatever in the river and you're like, well, I wonder what that is? What is that? So, as I mentioned earlier, where we were camping was near the water. So we were down in the water one day, and there was something floating, and we thought, what is it? We saw it, and it was gone, and we saw it again. And we were like, was that like a head or something? It's head up, head down. So we were there having a discussion about what is this that we are seeing over in the water. So a friend of mine, he has a kayak, so he's like, right, I'm going to go and check it out, put you at ease. So he got the kayak off the top of his four-wheel drive, put it in the water, got his life jacket on, got his kayak all ready, and he went out to see what this mysterious thing floating was. And he gets out there, gets a bit closer, gets to it, and he yells out, "It's a piece of bark!" And we're like, oh, that's a bit disappointing, isn't it? We thought, oh, is it some sort of, is it maybe a bird, some sort of fish? Is it a monster? Who knows? But then it ended up being a piece of bark, which was really quite disappointing, if I'm honest. Really quite disappointing. So then, friend gets back and we're like, oh, well, all that, just for a piece of bark floating in the water. Yeah. But he went to the evidence. He got his kayak off the top of his car, off the top of his four-wheel drive, his 4B. Got his wetsuit on, what do you call it, life jacket on, all that stuff. Got the boat in the water, paddled out. Piece of bark. That's it. That's all it was. And we're there, with our phones zooming in, our cameras. Well, I had my camera trying to zoom in on it to see what it was, but we couldn't see what it was. And anyway, so like, oh, I'm going to go out and get my kayak down. I'll paddle out, see what it is. It was a piece of bark. So, yeah, it's a bit disappointing, that's for sure. Uneventful. It was like a real anticlimax, A real anticlimax. Well, that is it for this episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, got any feedback, you can tweet me, L_who's talking. We're on Facebook as well, or you can send us an email, LukeWho'sTalking, pod@gmail.com. I'm pretty sure that's what the email is. What I should do is write it down. But hey, there you go. Now, before I go, a couple of things. I got an email from Apple saying that, telling me how listeners on iPhone and whom are using the bog standard Apple Podcast app, I've got to say that isn't my number one app on my phone. I do use it, but as sort of a secondary app for podcasts. I use a different app. But anyway, the email was like, "Hey, people can use Siri to subscribe, to search, or to play episodes of podcasts. So if you're an iPhone user, you can say, 'Hey Siri, play Luke Who's Talking,' or search for Luke Who's Talking, or whatever. And there you go. Bit of something for you to test out. I got to say, I don't use Siri. I've never used Siri. I'm here saying Siri and my phone's not going off. So, hey Siri, see nothing. Oh, she's done something. Wow, there you go. But I don't use Siri personally. But if you do, and you use the standard Apple podcast app, you can use Siri to subscribe to podcasts. You can ask her or him, depending on how you have it set up, and they will. They might do it okay. My experience is Siri's really, really useless at times. And also, before I go, just a quick shout out to a colleague of mine who made a comment about last time I saw them, they were like, oh, it's Luke who's talking. So just a quick hello to Ria, if you're listening out there. And also Mel, if you're listening as well, because, yeah. Just hello to everybody who's listening. There we go. And I think it's about time I wrap it up. I'll catch you next time. See ya.